Hey everyone, I'm Julie Livingston here for another installment of PR Patter. I'm so delighted today to have my special guest, Erin Galloway. She's the director of publicity for Berkley, an imprint of Penguin Random House. Erin has worked with many best-selling authors, including Carly Fortune, Jasmine Guillory, Allie Hazelwood, Jane Ann Krentz, Helen Wang, um, Nalini Singh, and Jesse Sutanto. She holds a Master of Publishing degree from Pace University and counts herself lucky to have made a career out of falling in love with great books. Oh, how amazing is that? And telling others why they should love great books too. Her passions include food and wine, both of which are great accompanied by a wonderful book. Erin, thanks so much for being here with me.
Oh, Julie, thank you for having me today.
So many people often ask me if I do book publicity, and I say no, I don't, because it's a very specialized field. Why is it so specialized? What makes it a little different than the traditional public PR work that I and others do?
Yeah, we always joke that we have such an insular industry, and it's really not a joke. It's very true. Um, Book publishing is its own unique ecosystem within sort of the entertainment and communications world, and our publicity is unique because of that as well. Um, we don't have the most glamorous product when you compare us to high-end luxury goods, beauty. Some of what I think of as the most popular markets to work within when it comes to PR. But what we do have is a product that people feel very strongly about and typically have strong emotional resonance
So
with.
they have a passion for a
Yes,
particular genre of books.
that is correct. I like to think of, books as a way that people connect. So when you think about it, if you're a reader, this book that you're using, you bring it into your home. You often bring it into your bedroom, maybe your child's bedroom. It's a very emotional experience to read a book, especially a novel. And you're allowing that author into your personal world and
Right, so
your
it's kind of an
personal
intimate
space.
experience. I never really thought of it like that, but it's true.
It certainly is,
Yeah.
and I think that makes it special and unique, and we have to keep that emotional experience in mind when we are promoting a novel or any other kind of book.
So, how does it all happen, Erin? I mean, an author, you work a lot. You work mainly in the romance book space, which I think is
Yes, that's right.
phenomenal. And for my first question is actually, how has the pandemic um, affected sales of romance novels? Because people have just been so stressed.
Yes.
We're in the midst of a mental health crisis, and I would imagine, but I want to hear from you, that romance novels provide an escape.
Oh, absolutely. There's, an old saying in our industry, when the economy goes down, romance sales go up. And that's quite true. And that's been true for decades now. Romance is a comfort, it's a balm, it's an escape. Um, it's a way to feel like there will be a happy ending when times are dark and difficult. It's a wonderful way to just feel better about the world that you live in, to read a great book where someone's going to fall in love, their career is going to go well, their family relationships will be working, whether that's family of origin or family of choice. And, you get to experience the happiness in someone's life. And at a time when we were all feeling pervasive fear, anxiety,
Like, what's going to happen next?
overwhelm.
Right.
It was so comforting to pick up a book that would make you feel good. So it was not a surprise to me, nor the people I work with, that during the pandemic, romance sales really did boom. These were books that you could just escape with and made you feel better for the
Right. You
period
could
of
kind of
time you were
immerse yourself
reading.
in a different world.
Yes, exactly.
And where are people buying books now? I mean, your books are mainly are paperback
Mhm.
for the most part, right? I guess what audiobooks.
Oh, of course, yes.
Yeah. So what are people like, what are the trends in terms of how people are buying them and reading in what format?
So people are still remain very, you know, all over the place when it comes to reading. Everybody chooses their own flavor. Paperback sales are still doing well. Ebook sales, which, 10, 15 years ago, everyone thought was going to completely eclipse print, did not happen. They rose and then they mainly plateaued, and they
Interesting.
remain a very healthy portion of the market for different readers. Various segments remain more popular. For romance, for example, we have very strong ebook sales. And I think one of the reasons for that is this slice of the market, romance fiction, has some of the most voracious readers, and you can carry more books around on
Interesting.
an electronic device than you can physically.
Because they're
And
like candy, right? You
oh,
just
you
yeah.
read through them very quickly. Your average romance reader often reads more than one book a week, and
Oh,
that's a lot
wow.
to bring around. I mean, you can read at the doctor's office. I read in line at the grocery store because I can just read in line on my phone, which is fantastic. So for everybody, it's different. But I would say that it's a fairly set segment of our market now who reads in ebook format. Audio is continuing to grow because, again, you can read that anywhere while you're driving in the car, walking down the street, taking your jog. And I think the maybe unique thing about print sales, particularly in the last, I would say, 7 or 8 years, is that with the rise of books on Instagram and TikTok more recently, is that books are a beautiful image that you can post about. So the book is also, sort of a visual experience as much as it is an emotional reading experience. So we give a lot of thought to how a book is going to look on someone's Instagram feed, because chances are, if you are an influencer posting about the books that you read, you're going to be
You'll
putting
show
that
the
on your
cover,
Instagram.
obviously.
And so the trade paperback format of our market, specifically in romance, has really increased because it's such a beautiful book to sit on your shelf, which is exciting. The trade paperback market was not as strong in romance 10 years ago than it is now, which is wonderful to see.
Wow, that's really interesting. I mean, I do notice on a lot of my Zoom calls that people now have color coded
Oh, yes.
setups of books in the background.
Hmm. Yep,
Um,
everybody organizes their shelf in a different way. I
yeah.
do love the rainbow look. I think it's very attractive. Um, I go for like author by author alphabetically and in order of series, but to each their own.
So how does the publicity process for an author for a new book work, Erin? Can you tell us a little bit about it from the beginning to achieving the final result? How do you work
Yeah.
with authors? How do you work with your marketing department?
It typically starts the moment that a book is acquired. And in general, we acquire most books over a year in advance of the time that we're publishing them. And it could be even further in advance than that. It's frequently 18 months or even longer, depending. And once that book is officially acquired, um, that is when we really start to think about, okay, how are we going to be promoting this book? And the publicist and the marketing team that will be working on the book are usually assigned somewhere in the 9 to 11 months in advance range. And once they are assigned, they are in touch with the author. We introduce marketing and publicity at the same time, generally. And they, at the time that they're in touch with the author, already have some initial thoughts on what kind of outreach they're going to be doing. What are our aims for this particular book? Who is the audience? How are we going to reach them? What will our targets be? What kind of major newspaper coverage are we looking for? Are there any specific podcasts that we think might be of interest? Is this a book that has morning show potential, NPR radio potential? Could this author potentially write a really interesting essay for a major
Mm.
outlet? Who are the .com outlets that are going to be interested? Is this an Oprah Daily book? Um, Is this an Esquire.com book? Thinking about all of those things in advance. And then, you create what we call kind of our plan or our wish list, what we would like to work toward. We share that wish list with the author and their agent. And generally, that's the time that if the author or agent have specific wants, feedback, questions, maybe even some media contacts that they have close relationships. That's when we will discuss all of those items.
Right,
And
because if the
see.
author already has relationships with journalists, the natural thing to do would be to pitch them first.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah.
So we really try and get all of that information up front so that we know how best to strategize. And once we have all of that information and everyone's agreed on the plan, that's when we begin outreach. So that's everything from getting the trade publications, which are your Publishers Weekly, Library Journal, Booklist, Book Page, Kirkus. These are the publications of our book publishing trade. They are the ones that go out to booksellers and librarians months in advance of the book publishing, and will tell these important gatekeepers, this is a book that you want to pay attention to. So if you get a good trade review, people really pay attention. Even, journalists and editors at major outlets pay attention to a great review.
Wow. So really
from
it seems like that's sort of a foundational
Yes.
first step is really getting the trade coverage, no?
Absolutely, it is.
Because
And
that leads to retail placement.
correct. That's exactly right. And you never know who is listening or paying attention. I had the experience maybe 5 years ago now, 4 or 5 years ago, when a particular book buyer for a major national chain heard me speaking on a podcast about a novel that I was really excited about. He heard me talking about this book probably 7 months in advance of its publication.
Wow.
I was invited to appear and talk about upcoming books that, I was really excited about. And I was mainly talking about books that were coming out in the next 3 to 5 months. But they said, well, is there anything else coming out later this year that you're excited about? And I discussed a particular book. This book buyer was listening. He and I have met on a number of occasions. And he thought, if Erin is this passionate about this book, we better take this book in a big way. They came out of the gate with a large committed buy, which doesn't always happen for a debut novelist. And that book sold really well. And it was because he heard me early on. And more importantly than that, he trusted my opinion because we have a relationship and a rapport. We've met and spoken before.
Right.
And I could trade on that trust. I didn't even realize in the moment that I was speaking about the book, the kind of trust I was trading on, because of course I didn't know until months later that he had heard, but it made a real difference for me, my imprint and this author.
That's amazing. So often you do sort of a trend report or kind of a forecast, you sort of give people a preview of what's coming down the pike.
Yes.
And that could lead to even more publicity.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about the process for a debut novel, a new author coming out with the first book. How do you manage their expectations?
Yeah, that's one of the biggest challenges because I think it's their baby. They have toiled. It is an extraordinary accomplishment to write a book. The number of people that start writing a book and never complete one, I can't even count. The number is so high. The number of people that actually complete a book, it's a huge accomplishment. So to tell someone that not everyone is going to love their baby, that they toiled.
That's a slippery slope, Erin.
Right? I mean, it's such a huge and emotional endeavor to write this novel. To imagine that there will be people that won't connect with it is difficult. So in terms of setting expectations, there are certain things that, we do have to say. With a debut novelist, you are not proven ground yet. People do not know what to expect from you. And we are not, and at least on the publicity side, we are not promoting the book directly to readers. We're promoting the book to the gatekeepers, to media contacts that will hopefully
Right.
be a great conduit to their audiences. So my first goal is always, who's the right gatekeeper for this book? And how do I convince them that this is the book that they need to spend their time reading, as opposed to the 15 other authors coming out with books that month
Right.
that already they know they love? And then to realize, in addition to those 15 authors they already know and love that they could very easily spend their time reading and get a guarantee, there's me and countless other publicists saying, hey, pay attention to my
To my
debut
book.
novel.
Right.
So one of the things that I think we trade on is the trust that we build in the relationships that we have with media contacts. I'm very clear when I say a book is a personal pick from me. I'm passionate about this book. I go to the mat for this book. This is my pick for the season. That carries a different bit of weight with contacts because they know, okay, she's serious. And I don't trade on that for every single book. I couldn't possibly. But I do use those relationships when we're talking about a debut author, because that's not a guarantee. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, how do you build a story around an author, whether they're a first-time author or one
mhm.
that's more, known? How do you build that story so that it's of interest to the media?
Every author has something special, whatever that might be. If that's their background story, how they became an author, um, if it is why the writing is unique. Every single author has something special. And as the publicist, it's your job to figure out what that is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it does involve investigative work, because as the author, what you're focused on is your book. Writing a book is a very solitary endeavor. Publishing a book takes a village. And when the author is thinking, well, I wrote the book, my work is done here. Oh, not hardly. We are only just beginning. And for me, I need to know what is most interesting about you that is going to help me support the promotion of your book. And if it isn't your background, is it your writing style? Is it your approach to writing? Is it why you're focused on the subject matter that you are? And I'm going to plumb your depths, probably in some uncomfortable ways, to figure out what makes you tick, what makes this book special. I've had authors talk about maybe a really painful moment in their personal life
Right.
or their childhood that really illustrates a point that they are trying to make in the book. I've had authors speak about a really hilarious moment in their lives that inspired an element of the book, how their career, inspired elements in a book. We've discussed all sorts of different elements that make a book and an author special. And like I said, as the publicist, that's your job to figure out what it is and then talk about it in a way that's interesting, exciting, and personal for the media that you are reaching out to.
In reading the list of authors that you work with, Erin, it's fascinating to see how multicultural they are and
Oh,
the different
yes.
backgrounds. How has how have multicultural stories
hmm
come to light and opened new markets and presented new publicity opportunities?
Oh, that's a great question, and it's one I'm excited about. I think any editor at my imprint, Berkley, would tell you that the first reason they acquire a book, beyond just falling in love with it, of course, is because they are captured by the voice of an author.
Yeah.
Um, And that's what's distinct. We are always looking for new and exciting voices. The discovery element of finding a new author is a high, like, unlike any other. And I think that's something that my imprint's always been really committed to, finding incredible voices. And we are especially committed to finding diverse voices, because the truth is, for many, many years, publishing has not been representative of the readership that we are trying to serve. We Publishing is overwhelmingly white. And that is changing. Is it changing fast enough? No, but it is changing. And we are incredibly committed to ensuring that our writers are representative
That's
of
great.
the market that we serve. And what does that mean in terms of opening up new avenues? Well, it means that all sorts of different publications, media outlets that are available, I mean, they're countless, right? Can you even quantify the number of media outlets that are out there? Radio shows,
Oh, it's crazy, and
podcasts.
that then you have, different, publications for various, cultural segments of the
Oh,
market in different
absolutely.
languages.
It's thrilling to be able
Yeah,
to reach out to a podcast that wants to serve the AAPI market and have an author that's excited to speak about, topics and current events that are relevant to this market. And I also think that it is important for readers that have always gravitated to a book with people on the cover that look like them to pick up books with people on the
of
cover that
course.
do not look like them or that do not have their lived experiences. Because what so many people find when they pick up one of these books is, of course, they can relate to these characters. We're all human. We all have the same hopes, dreams,
Sure.
desires. How we get to them may be different. The challenges that we deal with may be very different. And it makes us more conscientious citizens and neighbors if we are more aware of the experiences of our community counterparts. So, is it important to us to constantly be reaching out to new markets and to find new media to help reach those markets? Yes, it's a big part of our job.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. Um, People often say to me, and I'm sure a lot of authors say this to you, whether they're experienced authors or newbies, "I wanna be on the Today Show."
Yes.
What is it what are the requirements to be morning show material?
Mm. And I'll be honest and say this is ever changing. I'm but first and foremost, you need to have an incredibly confident, smooth, and upbeat delivery to be on camera. You need to be what we as publicists say, mediagenic.
Yeah.
You are someone that speaks in a way that is clear, you enunciate well, you have a real sparkle about you. Um, to kind of put an adjective to it. And there needs to be something compelling about you when you speak. There's either a resonance to your voice, a voice that readers will trust, that viewers will trust, and not everyone has that. Um, so we're always looking for someone with a fantastic delivery. And a morning show is looking for someone with a proven delivery style. Do you have clips? Have you appeared on local TV
Right, they're gonna
before?
be less apt
Regional?
to pick a debut author and more apt
Yes.
to pick someone with a very big audience already.
Correct. They want someone experienced. And maybe you have expertise in a particular topic. Depending on the time of year, you may be selected. For example, we had a romance author several years ago with a book that was out with Reese's Book Club. It was a Reese pick. And that book was a Reese pick during February. Well, what could be more perfect but to be on a morning show during the month of Valentine's Day talking
Incredible.
about your romance novel that is a Reese pick? And that is how Jasmine Guillory got onto the Today Show for the first time. Um,
Ah,
and she was so sensational that they understood what a fantastic book recommender she could be. And she's appeared numerous times now on the Today Show
that's
to talk about
incredible.
books she loves.
Wow,
Um,
wow.
and can I give you a a perfect list of check boxes to hit? No, if I could, I'd be a consultant and charging way more money. But I feel that if you are in the right place at the right time and you have all the right elements, that's your best shot And we were very fortunate that she was in the right place at the right time. She had exactly the kind of book that people would want. And she has a great delivery and she's very widely read. So the Today Show loves hosting her because she always comes back with very interesting picks, and does a fabulous job.
That's wonderful. Um, what kind of responsibility does the author have in the publicity process? I mean, you just mentioned um, they have to have a particular, if they're going to be on broadcast television, they have to have a particular persona and manner of speaking. But what about for podcasts and for print interviews or other interviews for
Yeah.
other digital platforms? What does the author need to do?
So we in general handle all of the pitching as the publicists, of course. Granted, if an author has a personal relationship, they may do some outreach themselves. But in general, their job is to hopefully do all of the homework that I am assigning to them. And we decide in advance what they're comfortable with. There are authors that don't love podcasts. They're either just not as comfortable, doing it, or long form interviews they don't love. They're just not as talkative. And that's fine if that's the case. I have a lot of authors that love podcasts because it's not on camera. They can do that interview in their pajamas if they so wish.
Right.
So really the responsibility is being very clear with me up front about what they are comfortable and willing to do. And then I'll work within those parameters. But as the author, it is the hope of your publishing team. And when we acquire you, we're very clear about this, that you'll be a real partner in the promotion of your novel, that you will be an important, element of the campaign. And that is by doing interviews, whether in print, online, on a podcast, or broadcast, if we are lucky enough to book that.
That's great. Erin, I can't believe we're at time. This has been such an informative conversation. Thank you so much for being with me today. How can people get in touch with you?
Oh, thank you so much for having me today, Julie. And well, honestly, all you have to do is Google my name and my email address shows
good.
up on all of my authors' websites.
Okay, fantastic. Listen, have a great day. And everyone stay tuned next week for another edition of PR Patter. Have a great week.